Welcome, everyone. It's very, very nice to have you here. I'm Tamara from the Community Relations team here at Verbi Software, and it's my pleasure today to introduce you to two of our speakers who will be presenting their new book, The Practice of Qualitative Data Analysis, that is actually a second volume in the series. And here with us today are the editors of this book, Stefan Rädiker and Michael Gizzi. Stefan Rädiker is a consultant and a MAXQDA trainer, and he has been involved with the development of MAXQDA for 20 years now. So he is one of our meta trainers here at Verbi. And then we also have Michael Gizzi with us, and Mike is a professor of criminal justice at Illinois State University and also a certified MAXQDA trainer. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will hand it over to you, Stefan and Mike.
Thank you. I'll get us started, and Stefan will bring us in. Welcome. Thanks for joining us late in the evening for those of you in Europe, and the middle of the afternoon, or early afternoon in the United States. We're really excited to introduce the second volume of the Practice of Qualitative Data Analysis. This book, the first volume we published in, this was our pandemic project that we did in 2020 and published in 2021. And the book the second volume consists of 9 real-world case studies of a wide variety of usage of MAXQDA in actual research, in actual real-world research. You can download the book for free from MAXQDA Press. You can purchase a paperback copy from Amazon, which is quite nice. If you want it, you can't see it there. There you go. And I think we have some of our contributors here. I can't see the full list, but if so, none of this would be possible without the amazing work done by the 9 presenters, contributors to the book, and really of the 2 books, the 19. And we're really grateful for the incredible work that you've done. But the Practice of Qualitative Data Analysis, both volumes, draws upon example-based learning. MAXQDA has lots of tools to conduct a qualitative analysis, and the user manual and the numerous resources out there, all the webinars and YouTube videos, provide a lot of in-depth guidance about functions. But this book does something unique, we think. It provides the reader with insights into actual research projects. It provides examples that can serve to inspire you. The examples in the book come from many disciplines in both volumes. Many different methodological approaches. And one of the great advantages of example-based learning is that you can learn from every chapter, regardless of your discipline, the topic, or even the method that it deals with. You learn snippets at times, little things that you can apply to your own research. And we believe that an example-based book, like the Practice of Qualitative Data Analysis, is not only effective for novices, but for researchers of all levels. Whether you're an undergraduate conducting your first project, a doctoral student, or someone who's been working with qualitative data for years. And we hope that the book serves to inspire you in how you accomplish, your research. And if it does, let us know. Drop us an email. We would love to hear how the book has influenced your work. Next slide. So the 2 volumes together, there are 19 chapters, 19 case studies in the 2 volumes. They are very similar in many ways. They follow the same structure. They have the same underlying goals, but they cover different topics. Volume 1 covered a variety of research methods and data types and MAXQDA features. We were drawing heavily from poster prize-winning posters from the international conference over the years and reaching out to people. Volume 2 takes a different approach. We wanted to fill in some of the gaps of things that we didn't get to cover in the first volume. And we ended up, and so we put out a call for papers and chapters, and we ended up organizing the book into 3 sections, one on word-based, AI-assisted, and rapid analysis. And those are 4 chapters, 2 chapters on survey and mixed methods work. And then the last 3 chapters focus on thematic analysis, visual analysis, and interpretive analyses. And so we were looking for additional methodological approaches, and we're very pleased with that. In the front of volume 2, we include a table that illustrates the more than 30 key MAXQDA features that are covered in both volumes of the books. There's a similar table in the first volume's book, and we realized that when we were putting together volume 2, we should merge those together. Treat these 2 books as if these are companion pieces. And what's really nice about this table is you can scroll through it, particularly the volume 2 one, and you can say, for example, I'm interested in how to import documents from Excel spreadsheets. And you'll see there that in volume 2 on page 127, we have Schmider and Rogers. And then we have in volume 1, 2 different, actually the same authors. Interesting. But color coding, highlight coding, features appearing in both books, different types of examples. It's really a useful tool for you. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. Each chapter follows the same structure. This is one of the highlights of the 2 books, I think. Each chapter starts with a brief introduction to the topic, the research questions, discuss the methods that were used in the paper at a fairly simple level. It's not meant to be an in-depth 5-page discussion of methods. And then the bulk of the chapter describes in a step-by-step manner how MAXQDA was used. And then finally, we end every single chapter. We ask the authors to provide us with a list of lessons learned. There you go. And it was a way of sort of, when you were doing this research, if you could do this again, what would you have done differently? If you're encouraging someone else to follow on this, what could they benefit from this project? It helps you avoid pitfalls. It helps you learn from others' experiences, and it offers suggestions. And so that example on the screen was actually from my chapter in the second volume. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk briefly about each of the 9 chapters. I will start, and then Stefan will continue. So we're going to begin with the first sets of chapters that are on word-based analysis, AI-assisted analysis, and rapid analysis. Now, the AI-assisted stuff we started a year ago. It was not as much as what we have today, but that's okay. It still gives you ideas and ways to rapidly analyze data. So the first chapter is by Matthew Loxton, and using MAXQDA's word-based features and AI assist, processing large numbers of documents in strategic foresight. And as you see there, each chapter actually begins with key features that it includes, whether it's word combinations, word clouds, AI assist, summary grid, creative coding, so on. And Matthew's chapter describes the use of MAXDictio and AI assist by a strategic foresight team of analysts. And he used MAXDictio word combinations to identify key themes from a large body of data. He was starting with a lot of information, and he wanted to narrow it down to develop an evidence-based code system. MAXDictio enabled word combinations, and the interactive word tree were used to explore context and meaning once common words or phrases had been identified. He used AI Assist to create automatic summaries of coded segments and to identify possible subcodes. And then creative coding was used to brainstorm and as a means to pull the results of the sessions into an initial coding system. They also used MAXQDA's questions, themes, theories, or QTT worksheets to develop a primary hypothesis and research questions for further analysis, working within a tight time frame. And so QTT worksheets helped to focus the analysis process to generate a working document that later formed the basis of their communication with the project sponsor. And so there's a lot in there, and as you see on the screen now, it's just the idea of thinking that starting with word combinations, they managed to get to a sophisticated coding system. And you'll notice there's an awful lot of coded segments. So there's a lot there. Always an interesting, Matthew's been in both books, and each time we learn from his work. Next, we have in chapter 2, Leandro Mahalam de Lima, using MAXQDA for word-based content analysis, nature and climate change perceptions in qualitative interviews. In Leandro's chapter, again, we see the features that were covered. He also used word frequencies, but he relied on word clouds, code maps, created a variety of max maps, activate information by variable, and transforming coded data into categorical document variables. His chapter provided an example of how he used MAXQDA to analyze cultural models of nature and climate change perceptions using an exploratory set of 18 semi-structured interviews conducted among indigenous peoples in the lower Tapajós region of Brazil. He used word frequency analysis to synthesize and map the major components that frame the content about which his interviewees talked about. He described how he analyzed, quantified, and mapped instances when participants raised the theme of climate change, evidencing patterns and variable factors that cut across multiple cases. And the goal was to show how word-based content analysis can bring new ways to describe and visualize different ways of thinking by creating simple and meaningful lists, tables, and concept maps. And so, should have switched, my bad. And so, he used word frequencies and then ended up with, let's see, what was code clouds? A code cloud generated very interesting, thoughtful kind of max maps, concept maps to think about the way these interviews, kind of helped him conduct the analysis. So there's a lot there as well. And it's interesting because he does things in I do a lot of word-based analysis, but he used word-based analysis very differently from me. And that's great because it provides yet a different example. There's no one way to do a lot of these things. This leads me to chapter 3, which is my chapter. Actually, it's Richard Vail and myself. I co-wrote this chapter with my longtime collaborator and friend, Richard Vail, using MAXQDA for dictionary-based content analysis, an example exploring the business strategy of Netflix over time. And as you see here, we had a lot of features that were covered in this chapter. Almost all the elements of MAXDictio plus Word Explorer in the process of creating a dictionary. The chapter focused on our study of business strategy using corporate shareholder letters and earnings call transcripts from the Netflix Corporation. And we demonstrate in the chapter how we used MAXQDA's dictionary-based content analysis features to aid in the initial coding of 40 quarterly letters and transcripts in a longitudinal study to examine changes in Netflix's business strategy over a 5-year period. These documents that we're working with were collectively more than 400 pages long and more than 200,000 words. And so we wanted to use dictionary-based content analysis, and you can put that on the screen, the next one. We wanted to use dictionary-based content analysis as a way to initially code our segments of text that covered specific concepts that we were examining. We knew we were interested in a variety of concepts that we wanted to look at. And so we developed a method to build a dictionary with search terms identified through searches using word frequencies, Word Explorer, Word Matrix Browser. We tested a proposed dictionary with the category matrix browser, the dictionary-based content analysis, and the word matrix browser. We used all these tools multiple times, and then used autocode with dictionary to conduct an initial cycle of coding of the themes. A second cycle of coding was completed using the smart coding tool, as well as manual reading of the documents, resulting in a fully coded project that we can analyze over time. And then we use summary grids to create summary tables. So from a dictionary to a summary table, for example. And I will turn it over to Stefan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Well, in my research example, which is the 4th chapter here, and I demonstrate how I extensively utilize the code comments of MAXQDA to rapidly analyze interview data. And when you compare the number of key MAXQDA features covered in my chapter with the previously presented chapters, you see that I'm focusing on a specific, kind of a method, a specific tool in MAXQDA. It's the comments that I'm using. And I'm explaining here how I could use it to create and build categories. I was summarizing the data in the comments and then ended up with the nice concept maps. So here is what I did. So while I was coding, I wrote a summary for each coded segment. So a side note, today I would use AI Assist to support me in this process. When I was doing this project, I was working together with a student assistant who was helping me with summarizing those coded segments into those comments in MAXQDA. And actually, it's a kind of weird thing to saying I want to rapidly analyze data and adding in a step that slows me down, because actually writing the summary slowed down the coding process, but it helped me later to easily access the segments, create categories, and create visualizations. So instead of working with the original segments that you can see here highlighted in the background, which was actually a little bit larger then, I continued working with the summaries. And for example, I dragged all of those comments in Max Maps and started to arrange them in a sense-making order. I organized them into themes and visualized the relations and ended up with many different images that I could later use in my report. Not all of them looked like this. Some look very different. Some look similar, but the idea was always the same. Working with the summaries, sometimes checking back the original segments, but mainly working with the summaries in the further analysis process. The second section of the book is about survey and mixed methods analysis. And in the 5th chapter, Christina Silva presents how she analyzed responses to open-ended survey questions. As you can see, when you're looking at the list of key MAXQDA features covered, she used many different MAXQDA tools to do so. So she used the survey data import from Excel spreadsheet tool, which opens up and splits up the data, the open-ended questions and the closed-ended questions into variables and coded text. And then she used many of the other tools like activate documents by variables, document variable statistics to get an overview of the statistical, of the quantitative data. And she also used word-based tools, as you can see on the right part of this list, like word combinations and word clouds to explore her open-ended answers. As typically for a survey, it contained those closed-ended and open-ended questions, and those, of course, resulted in those qualitative and quantitative data in MAXQDA project. And the interesting thing with MAXQDA is that you can combine them here. And she demonstrates, for example, how she used the segment matrix to analyze how the open-ended responses differed between those with different recommendation scores. You can see here, for example, there are those with low values. There was a scale from, I remember it was from 0 to 10 or 1 to 10. And here she included those with 5, 6, and 7 and compared it, for example, to those with 8 and higher. So she created this joint display to analyze the open-ended responses. In the 6th chapter, Sinem Toraman-Turk, who already provided a very interesting session about her mixed methods project, and which is available in the sessions tab here in the Max Days, she presents an interesting complex mixed methods project in the book. So she used MAXQDA to manage the quantitative data and the qualitative data. And she particularly emphasizes the important part of data management in mixed methods project. She had a very strict rule on how to name the data and so on, and how to name her files. You can really learn a lot about this data manage part of data analysis in her chapter 2. And besides those typical tools for qualitative data analysis, as you can see here, like segment matrix, for example, she also used MAXQDA stats to analyze her quantitative data. She created frequency tables, descriptive analysis in stats she calculated. And then she explains in the chapter how she used those different MAXQDA features to integrate the different kinds of data and results, particularly those for joint displays. For example, I learned in her session today that she also used those different memo icons sometimes in the document system that you can see here, how she that related to some quantitative variables too. And here, what you see here in this screenshot is that she created 6 document sets that represent different learner types. And she created those by using her quantitative data. And these sets then were used to create a comparative view in the Code Matrix browser. And as you can see, here we have those 6 profiles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And those now form the columns here in the Code Matrix browser. So she could compare them and bring together the qualitative and the quantitative analysis. The 3rd section of the book deals with thematic, visual, and interpretative analysis. And in the 7th chapter, Christian Schmieder and Alison Rogers had to deal with a large qualitative data set of 6,000 records and explain in the chapter how they did this. So you can see that they, again, used several different features here, but very typical features for MAXQDA usage, like code memos, comment memos, or table overviews of coded segments. And I think it's interesting to show here this slide to because their research example demonstrates 2 steps. In the first step, they explain in detail how they filtered the 6,000 documents to 250 using text search and autocoding in the first step there, and reducing the documents already to 1,300. And then they used a very interesting complex coding query to reduce it further to 250 documents, because they were looking for intersections of different codes. And after they have identified the important parts of their large data sets, they started a thematic analysis in an iterative process. So what you can see here is they started with an anchor question, then they used the code comments as I did similarly in my project. And then after writing the code comments for those coded segments, they reviewed the comments and developed themes from it. And then they reviewed the themes, and then they started the next cycle where they continued with the next anchor question. I think you can learn a lot about filtering data from their project and then continue working with it in a qualitative way. Elena Samanova demonstrates how she used MAXQDA for her photo voice project. And for this project, she had collected interview data with pupils in West Africa. And she gave a camera to those pupils and asked them, please take 5 pictures of your school environment, and then we can talk about it. So she was collecting those interview data while the pupils were talking about their experiences and explaining their images. And she also had those images. And then her task was to combine this visual and textual analysis. And she used many different features of MAXQDA to combine them during the coding stage. She used creative coding later on, and mainly she used internal links to combine those data. And she also created Max Maps later on, where she combined the coded parts with those coded text, those coded image parts, right? We chose to show you this idea of linking in MAXQDA here, what she did in her project. For example, here we see the coded interview data, and there are those blue underlined sentences, and these are links actually to the image part of her data. So for example, here we have this link to this restroom they're using there, and the pupils were explaining it in their interview. So the photo was always at hand when she hovered the mouse cursor over the blue link text. And then we have the 9th chapter, and in his research example, Andreas Müller illustrates how MAXQDA can be utilized in a project that extensively relies on interpretation and not so much on coding. And actually, he explains this explains 6 steps where he used in-document memos, color coding, document memos, and again in-document memos for different steps of his interpretative analysis. And it is very interesting. So, for example, in the first step, he was looking at the initial statement of interviews he conducted, and then he noted down his interpretations, his own interpretations, in a blue highlighted memo, and then he showed those initial statements to a group of researchers and asked them for their interpretation. And to differentiate between those different types of memos, he used the red memo symbol, a very easy technique, but very powerful, because you have both interpretations at hand, and he was able to compare the individual interpretation with the group's interpretation later on. So this was a great chance to learn from him on how to use different MAXQDA tools for interpretative analytical steps in your project. Yeah, thank you for your attention. We hope that you are now curious to take a deeper look into the book. Tamara already pasted the link, direct link to the book in the chat, so you can scroll up if you have missed it and directly go there, or you simply go to MAXQDA Press and it is featured there directly, and you can download the book there. And I think it's time again to say thank you to all the authors that have contributed and given so much insights and presented so much lessons learned from them to the book. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to see questions and comments in the question and answer, and comments in the chat. Or maybe you have something to add, Mike, at the end.
No, just thank you very much, and I hope you download copies of both books. and there's just so much in there for you. We're very proud of it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there is an interesting question here in the question and answer, and it's the last chapter appears to be the member checking strategy used in qualitative research, but actually it was the research group. It was not. It was more like a check with colleagues than with the members of the persons asked. Yeah, but it's a very interesting thing of checking here the data, and you may have a look at it and decide on yourself if you would already call this member checking. Yeah, the next question is in which situations is one allowed to have different overlapping codes for the same data material? Oh, this is an interesting question, because I would say it's always a good idea to have overlapping codes for the same data material. Actually, there is no one who is allowing it, or no one who is forbidding it. Actually, the only thing you should not do when you're coding the data is having overlaps of codes that are kind of disjunctive themselves. So, for example, if you're rating something with high, medium, and low, and you're assigning medium and high to the same segment, it makes no sense usually, except their different parts of the data are high and low. But usually it's a good idea to do it because there are many tools in MAXQDA to look for those overlaps. Yeah. Some of the best analysis is how codes overlaps. Here, I think this is a good answer, Matthew. Thanks.
Yeah, code patterns is a very, very powerful tool.
Yeah, we're looking forward to see some more questions on the book, and yeah, currently we like to answer this question live. Okay.
I think we've answered them all so far.
Okay.
Oh, we got more.
Yeah, there is another one here. I was expecting that. Will there be a volume 3? Actually, we haven't planned one, but if so, we may ask you, Matthew, as contributed to the first and to the second volume with great chapters. Thank you so much, Matthew.
There's a lot of new stuff, that's for sure. A lot of possibilities. So.
Actually, it would be the practice of integrating AI into qualitative data analysis, I guess. But
yeah, that could be by itself. We could have 10 chapters.
Yeah.
But give us a little break. Give us a little time. This is it's an intensive process.
But feel free to contact us and the Verbi team, for example, to sharing your research projects and sharing your experience, because we are so sure that we can learn so much from each other, and how Michael already explained the research examples, and this research-based learning is really great from my experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
any other questions? So we have a whole another day of Max days left. So don't remember that tonight's, today's over, but there's a whole another day tomorrow. So make sure you come back tomorrow.
Yeah, and have a look at the book. It's really worth it. Yeah.
Please do so.
Okay. So I think also the authors will be happy if you're sending them a mail how helpful their chapter was for your research and how you got inspired by them. And you will find all the authors in the net, and most of them are, actually, I think all of them are trainers. So of MAXQDA, so you'll find them also on the MAXQDA website on the Pagers part. But Tamara already joined in, right? So hello, Tamara, again.
Hello again. Yes, thank you for this wonderful presentation. I already read the book, but it was still very nice to hear this wonderful summary of each chapters. And yes, as you mentioned, we are always here at the Verbi team very happy to hear from you about your research, and we are also very happy to hear any suggestions that you might have. Feel free to reach out to us during MAXQDA, during the event, or write us an email. I posted our address in the chat, but you can also find us online, and you are able to find all of our trainers online. They all have a trainer profile as well. And I think that we answered all all questions here. So thank you so much, Mike and Stefan. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. Thank you everyone for sticking so long and sticking around and staying here. It was a wonderful day with you. And I would say let's head over and recap this day. Thank you so much, and see you next time.